On 22nd April 2025, Tuesday around midday, a devastating terrorist attack took place in Pahalgam near Anantnag in Kashmir. The attack was carried out by a terrorist group called the Resistance Front, which is linked to the Pakistani terror organization Lashkar-e-Taiba. According to the report so far, 28 people have been killed. The deceased include both tourists and local residents. This brutal attack has undeniably shaken the entire nation. Aarsha Vidya Samajam expresses its deepest condolences to the victims and their families during this time of profound grief. The eyewitnesses of this attack stated, there were many tourists and all of a sudden, a few terrorists arrived with guns. They first asked the men their names, then they ordered them to remove their pants, recite the kalima and read verses from the Quran. Realizing that they were not Muslims but Hindus, the terrorists opened fire at point-blank range, brutally killing these people. This horrific act was carried out right in front of the victims' family members. When the wives and children of some of those killed pleaded with the terrorists to take their lives as well, the terrorists replied, "No, go and tell your government what happened here." What's truly shocking is that even in the face of such a brutal massacre, there are people trying to whitewash the terrorists. It happened because Muslims feel unsafe and sidelined. That's why the terrorists kill people based on religion. This controversial statement was made by Wayanad MP Priyanka Gandhi's husband Robert Vadra. His shameless and cruel justification, equating the attack to some twisted form of retaliation, essentially suggests that Muslims can't live safely in India, so they chose to kill Hindus based on their religion. This kind of reasoning is not only deeply disturbing but also dangerously insensitive, especially in the aftermath of such an horrific act. Among those condemning this incident where innocent people were massacred based on their religion, there were also strange sides of some of them shifting the blame onto the central government. By accusing the Sangh Parivar of trying to incite religious tension, some are indirectly attempting to downplay the attackers and the attack itself. They are unwilling to even acknowledge the fact that this was a deliberate act of religious terrorism, where Hindus were selectively targeted and killed in an attempt to provoke communal riots. The Kerala state opposition leader seems to have a problem in calling it Islamic terrorism. But then, how well should we describe actions inspired by Islamic religious texts aimed at turning Kashmir into an Islamic state? When Islamic terrorism, which is wreaking havoc across the world, is criticized, who is feeling uneasy? Be sure to see through the double standards of these politicians. We have seen how they behaved in similar situations before. Let's not forget who was at the forefront of trying to label even the Lashkar-e-Taiba executed Mumbai attacks as Hindu terrorism or Hindutva extremism. Some are reacting as if to say, what was the point of inviting tourists with false assurances when adequate security wasn't in place? Was it really a mistake by the Modi government to transform Kashmir, which was once a hotbed of terrorism, into a tourist destination? This comes at a time when patriotic locals themselves are calling for a strong response, pointing out that an attack like this at the beginning of the tourist season could instill fear among visitors and severely impact their livelihoods. The CPIM General Secretary M.A. Baby criticized the central government by saying that its Kashmir policy has failed. Look at the irony. When numerous massacres took place in Kashmir in the past, and when hundreds of thousands of Pandits were forced to live as refugees, these very people had no objections whatsoever to the then central government's Kashmir policy. These are the very people who tried every possible means to oppose the abrogation of Article 370 and the efforts to bring Kashmir onto the path of peace and failed. These are the same people who argued that elections should be held in Kashmir at the earliest and that law and order responsibility should be handed over to the state government. Despite the huge influx of tourists to this region, these people have no complaints about the fact that there wasn't even a single police officer present at that scene. Why? Because the state government is run by the India Alliance. Is collecting crores in revenue from the Kashmir's booming tourism the only responsibility of the Jammu and Kashmir government? One more question. If the center were to take complete control of law and order in Kashmir, would these very people support it? Many are now taking a calculated stand against terrorism, not out of conviction, but because they have no other option, having realized that global leaders and the nation's collective conscience are firmly against terrorism. Let's not forget, in similar fashion, when Hamas terrorists infiltrated Israel, massacred civilians and took hostages, many of these same individuals shamelessly justified those actions. Some even went as far as to claim that whatever Hamas does is somehow always right. They wept for Gaza and the Rohingyas, yet turned a blind eye to the atrocities in Bangladesh and Bengal. They are the very ones who are responsible for the suffering of the Kashmiri Pandits and for the many crises the nation has faced. Their twisted narratives and double standards deserve nothing but outright rejection and contempt. Let's come to the matter at hand. On this issue, let me make the position of Aarsha Vidya Samajam clear. The false narrative that terrorism has no religion has once again been completely shattered. While it is true that there are various forms of terrorism such as Naxalite terrorism, which exploits poverty and backwardness of people, and ethnic or regional terrorism, the most dangerous of all is the silently growing religious terrorism. It is important to recognize the reality that the 400 or more Islamic terrorist organizations operating across nearly 200 countries today remain a serious threat to the world, both now and in the future. While other forms of terrorism can be combated through strong action alongside efforts to reduce poverty, promote development, and improve education, the reality is that Islamic terrorism cannot be dealt with in the same way. It is important to recognize that those with a jihadi mindset who dream of eternal paradise in the afterlife will never be content even if we create heaven on earth for them. Jihadi terrorism is often led by highly educated, skilled and wealthy individuals. There are many examples of this in front of us. I urge that tourism and the resettlement of Kashmiri Pandits should not be encouraged without firmly addressing terrorism. To achieve this, a strong presence and intervention by the central forces are necessary in the region for an extended period of time. It is a matter of serious concern whether it is right to allow the state government to reap the economic benefits of tourism without ensuring the safety of tourists, especially in a strategically important region like Kashmir. This is something that requires careful and serious consideration. The jihadi terrorism supported by Pakistan is what we have witnessed here as well. To eradicate this religious terrorism, a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism is absolutely necessary. The public is confident that those responsible for the massacre, that is, Pakistan as a terror factory, the state government's soft approach towards terrorism, and those who aided the terrorists will all receive appropriate punishment. We also have the support of the world's nation with us. However, understand that all these are only immediate measures or temporary fixes. A permanent solution can only be achieved by identifying and addressing the root cause of the problem. The root cause of Islamic terrorism must be identified and addressed. What is the root cause? The jihadi ideology is within Islam itself. Without recognizing this, it is impossible to effectively confront Islamic terrorism. This truth must be understood not only by the government but also the political parties, the media, the judiciary and the public. The sooner this is recognized, the better. In 2023, Sheikh Adil, who was the Deputy Superintendent of Police in Jammu and Kashmir, was arrested in connection with terrorist links. Who doesn't know that such an attack in Kashmir would not have been possible without the support and cooperation of certain factions within the police and individuals with a jihadi mindset? What could have motivated them to do so? It is religious extremism itself. It would be foolish to assume that those who once threw stones at the army have suddenly become nationalists in just a few days. Organizations like SIMI and PFI were banned, but can we really believe the problem has ended with that? Even when the Joint Army Commander was killed and now with the current tragic events, the social media posts of some individuals reveal their mindset very clearly. It shows that their ideological stance hasn't changed. The threat of religious extremism is still very much present. Banning organizations, military operations, prisons, courts, education, and development are not to be dismissed as meaningless. These measures are certainly necessary. However, when it comes to combating religious terrorism, it's important to understand that these alone will not be enough. We can kill the attackers, imprison them, ban the organizations, freeze their bank accounts, seize their assets. But as long as we fail to address the root cause that paves the path to these crimes, they will continue to recur. They will keep recruiting even children into the path of terrorism. In a country where jihadi ideologies are allowed to propagate freely, new terrorists will be created like Raktabijas. What is a true and lasting solution to this issue? De-radicalization is the only permanent solution. Aarsha Vidya Samajam's Adhyatmik Shastram course and the Sudarshanam De-radicalization, that is anti-indoctrination mission, are among the most impactful contributions in this field. For the past 25 years, this has been the core mission of AVS. We have a clearly defined syllabus and a well-structured action plan. Through these efforts, we have been able to save thousands of individuals from falling into the trap of extremism. Over 20 individuals, including myself, someone who had once held a jihadi mindset, are now working full-time in this noble mission. The goal is not to hate Muslims. They are our own brothers and sisters too, sharing the same heritage and belonging to the same human family. However, some among them, from a very young age, fall victim to various forms of brainwashing. As a result, they become hostile not only to people of other faiths or those without faith, but also to the society, the nation and humanity as a whole. In truth, they are also victims of this jihadi ideology. It is not Muslims who need to be opposed, but jihadism, the ideology that in the name of religion and God calls for hatred, labels others as kafirs and justifies their killing. This is what must be eradicated. What is jihadism? Jihadism is not merely about practicing or spreading a religion. It goes far beyond that. Under the banner of jihad, it refers to all forms of efforts aimed at converting Darul Harb, that is the land of non-Islam, into Darul Islam, that is the land of Islam. It has clear, systematic and detailed strategies. That is, first, convert individuals of other religions and indoctrinate them through multiple strategies while actively promoting religious fundamentalism, a process currently underway in many places around the world. Second, establish religious dominance across all sectors through organized efforts accompanied by communal intolerance and violence that seeks to drive others out, as we witnessed earlier in Kashmir. Third, when Islam gains a significant majority, gradually transform the region into an Islamic majority nation, often through separatist and divisive ideologies. The creation of Pakistan through partition is a prime example of this strategy. Next, establish a religious state based on the Sharia law there. Kill Muslims who do not submit to it, as the Taliban did in Afghanistan, for example. Finally, conquer other nations and establish Darul Islam, the land of Islam. All of these are steps involved in the process of jihad. Aarsha Vidya Samajam does not claim that all Muslims are extremists. After the terrorist attack in Pahalgam, there were Muslims from the local community who were present to console and assist the families of these victims. There are many Muslim individuals who think with compassion, living peacefully within their own beliefs and practices. However, the fact remains that there are extremists who are blinded by their rigid adherence to Islam. We must not forget that there are also those who are waiting for the right circumstances, hiding behind tactics like al-taqiyya. It is essential to eliminate the jihadist ideology that leads to such extremism. This is the goal of Aarsha Vidya Samajam. This approach is not only towards Islam but any religion or belief that promotes terrorism. The silence of prominent Islamic organizations is also noteworthy. Remember that among the greatest victims of brutality of Islamic terrorism are millions of Muslims themselves. Even in Muslim-majority countries such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Syria, Islamists have carried out massacres against fellow Muslims. However, many are unwilling to isolate the terrorists or condemn jihadism. Yet, when pointing fingers at terrorism and the jihadism that fuels it, these same individuals strongly take a stand against Islamophobia. When attackers from both the history and the present are exposed, rather than lamenting that it's targeting their religion, the focus should be on finding solution to the cruelty taking place in society in the name of Islam. Only then should they raise their voices in protest. The financial assistance provided by the secular government to madrasas should be immediately discontinued. There must be strict monitoring of madrasa curriculums as well. In this regard, China's stance serves as a model for other countries. China is even moving towards revising the Quran to eliminate sections that disrupt the balance of nation and human lives. Now, may the Indian government take steps to deliver a retaliation so powerful to the terrorists that they will never even think of carrying out another attack. Jai Hind.